Kim, and good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is John Kreisa. I am the Vice President of Marketing here at Hortonworks. And what we would like to talk with you today is about the hybrid modern data architecture with Microsoft and Apache Hadoop. And as Kim said, there will be time for question and answers at the end, so please do submit those during the presentation, and we will get to as many of those as we possibly can at the end. So first, I am, as I said, I'm John Kreisa, VP of Strategic Marketing here at Hortonworks. I'm also an avid 49ers fan, which I'll say grr, and I'm pleased to be joined by Oliver Chu from Microsoft. Oliver is an avid Seahawks fan, so we'll say a quick but begrudging congratulations to Oliver. Oliver, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, John, and thank you everyone for joining as well.
Super. So what we'd like to do is start off with a poll today, and I will ask Kim to go ahead and push that poll live. And I will ask those of you who are on the webinar today to go ahead and choose your answer. So what we're asking is, where are you in your Hadoop journey? So the question or the answers are there. Researching our options, so you're out trying to gather information. Current evaluating software, so you've got some software at Apache Hadoop distribution maybe of some form or fashion and are looking at that. You might be further along in the trial, so you might be spending some time already having built some applications perhaps, or doing a short POC, or you might be at the very beginning and really just starting and are trying to learn what Apache Hadoop is. So you could be anywhere along in that journey. Please pick the one that makes most sense for you. And we're going to give you just another, say, 15 seconds, again, to pick it. And then we will actually share these results. I think it'll be informative both for the rest of you out there in the audience, but as well for myself and for Oliver as we're going through our presentation to try to keep it in context. So Kim, why don't we go ahead and close that poll and then share that back with our attendees, if you would, please. Yep. And taking just a second, but here it comes. And almost there. So many people logged on that it's taking just a second, which is great. So here we go. So everybody should be able to see the results that we've got. It looks like a good number of people are in the research stage or are just learning about Apache Hadoop, and then there's a few that are in that kind of evaluation phase. So again, we appreciate you taking time to answer the questions. Again, it's very helpful for myself and Oliver, and we thank you. So let's go and really get into the presentation in detail here. So a brief introduction. We've heard from myself and from Oliver. We want to talk specifically with you about hybrid modern data architecture, give you about ideas about what that means, what that term means, and what some of the drivers are for modern data architecture. We'll talk about Apache Hadoop's role in that hybrid modern data architecture, and then we'll really double-click into how Microsoft fits into that overall architecture, and Oliver will take us through in detail, including a fantastic demo that I think you'll really enjoy. So let me go ahead and jump in now. So this is a very simple diagram, a very simple architecture which represents the architecture that really most organizations have in place today. So they're collecting commonly structured data sources, maybe some unstructured data sources, flowing those into a variety of data systems, relational database systems, EDWs, enterprise data warehouse systems, other NoSQL systems perhaps, and then analyzing them with a range of business applications, perhaps custom-built applications, package applications that are built off of and purchased off the shelf. This is really the common data architecture that most organizations have in place today, and it's been in place for quite some time, for the last maybe 10 or 20 years. The thing about that is this architecture, as it stands, has really been put under a tremendous amount of pressure. And it's been put under pressure by new kinds of data that are being collected. So in 2012, 2.8 zettabytes of data was collected worldwide in these kinds of business systems. But increasingly, there are new kinds of data that are putting pressure on these data systems that organizations want to capture and take advantage of. New kinds of data where there's value, things like clickstream data, things like machine-generated data or sentiment data or server log data. All of these kinds of data, more and more organizations are realizing that there's value, and a lot of that realization has come really at the advent of the internet companies, the big internet giants who started to take advantage of those kinds of data. In addition, there's also data like machine-generated data that streams off of devices, sensor systems on buildings and on airplane engines and phones and cell networks and power transmission grids and all the other places where machines are generating data. And that really represents also a tremendous growth area for data. More than 15 times growth in machine-generated data by 2020. Now what that means is, in 2020, more than 40 zettabytes of data will be created. Now that's a tremendous amount of information. It is new data that doesn't really traditionally fit into those existing architectures. They weren't really designed for that. They were designed for another purpose, for more structured data, for more relational data, and these new kinds of data are putting a lot of pressure on those existing systems. So what does that mean? It really means that the architecture that most organizations are using today has to be enhanced in order to handle those new kinds of data. And the way that we see that evolving, the way that's evolving the dominant way in the architectures these days is to add in a technology called Apache Hadoop, one that Hortonworks is very deeply and working very closely with and really driving the future of. Now, by adding Hadoop in as a complementary component to your existing architecture, it really expands the kinds of things that can be done with your existing data system. So Hadoop complements those existing data systems. It gives you a new way to store and process these emerging data sources, as I said, sensor data, sentiment data, geospatial data, and just unstructured data sources in general. It sits side by side with those existing data systems and allows you to load it in and process it, transform it, cleanse it, perhaps offload workloads that were running in your existing systems that were really not optimal or not designed for. It gives you cost advantages that enable you to do more with data, to find new insight, and really to create new analytic applications. So those are tremendous new capabilities and new opportunity that's created when you introduce Hadoop into this existing architecture as a complementary component of the things that you are doing today. Now, I realize some of the people on the webinar aren't familiar with Hadoop, so I want to take one step back and just provide a definition for Apache Hadoop. Now, Apache Hadoop is an open source project. It's an open source data management project that provides, at the same time, low-cost scale-out storage and processing framework. It basically goes across a cluster of computers and provides a very large pool of data storage and processing capabilities. And because it's open source, there is no licensing cost. You can download the software and install it on your servers and really begin immediately. And we'll talk about some ways to get going towards the end of the webinar. But it enables you to get going immediately with this scale-out processing and storage engine, and it allows you to take advantage of those new data types. And it's, in fact, massively scalable. In other words, big enterprise giant companies like Yahoo and others run it at the scale of multiple petabytes. So this is really what's driving Facebook and Twitter and Yahoo and many other large web properties. Really, their back-end infrastructure is driven by this open source technology, and now it's really going to the general enterprise to take advantage of that, and it's one of the things that Hortonworks is focused on as a company. So that's Hadoop. It really powers this kind of modern data architecture. But if you double-click on it, there are really some requirements for the adoption of this technology into that modern data architecture. Again, these are things that Hortonworks is quite focused on in terms of enabling them. And let me just sort of lay these out for you. There's three primary requirements that we see. One is that they need to be deeply integrated and interoperable with the existing technologies. In fact, that's one of the things that Oliver will demonstrate and show a little later in this presentation, how Microsoft is deeply integrated. But generally speaking, integration is key. It has to be deep, and it has to make it so that it's transparent to the user. Secondly, and related to integration for sure, is skills. It must enable the users within the organization to leverage their existing skills, both development skills, operational skills, analytic skills. Organizations like many of you who are on the webinar today have invested substantial resources into getting trained and getting used to using the tools that you have within your organization. So you spend a lot of time and money figuring out how to use things like, well, just even Excel or other Microsoft tools or any other kind of analytic tool that you might be using out there. So for Hadoop to be successful as a part of this modernized data architecture, it also must enable you to reuse your skills. And again, I think Oliver will do a great job of showing you how some of those existing skills can be used. And then the third component is the platform, the Hadoop-based platform that kind of wraps around Apache Hadoop and makes it consumable in the enterprise must have all of the key services necessary to install, provision, monitor, manage, and provide data services so that it can be successful. And that's really what a modern Hadoop-based platform does. It has all of those platform services. It provides high availability and failover and security, and all of those key services must be included in that platform. So if you take integration, skills, and key services, those are three requirements that we see are going to drive the overall adoption of this kind of new technology, this new enabling technology within the enterprise. Now, what we've done is if you look at how this is being used in the enterprises today, you can see this chart that I'm showing, and I apologize, it's a little bit small in the text, but if you look on the right-hand side, we've got different types of data, some of these new types of data that I mentioned that are being exploited. So could be server log data or machine-generated data or geo-specific data. And we've mapped that through to, in the center column, use cases. Now, these use cases come from actual implementations that Hortonworks has with our customers in these various industries. And you can see there's very broad adoption, very broad applicability of this new technology into these different industries. So it's no longer really just the purview of the big web properties. It's really now becoming a real technology that's being adopted across these different industries. So you see use cases around, in financial services around trading risk, or in retail around 360-degree view of the customer. These are all net new applications that are being built on top of a platform driven by Hadoop and integrated with a wide range of existing technologies. So again, these are real use cases that we've pulled from our existing customer base, and it applies across these different industries. And if you don't see your industry here, that's simply because we didn't have space on the slide. It's certainly there's almost certainly a use for Hadoop in your area. So we're quite excited about these. Obviously, something that you can contact Hortonworks or Microsoft after if you want to drill into more details around these. So let's talk now just a little bit about how Microsoft fits into this over modern data architecture. We've talked about what the drivers are for the modern data architecture. We've talked about Apache Hadoop and how it fits into that overall data architecture. Now let's kind of take it to the next level and talk about how Microsoft fits into this architecture. And really, Microsoft has the most comprehensive set of technologies that integrate with Hadoop and that drive this modern data architecture of really any company out there. So everything from data systems, SQL Server and PDW Parallel Data Warehouse, to System Center for management and operations, development tools, .NET and Visual Studio, and then the analytics tools, the Microsoft applications, Excel, Power BI, and the like. And again, many of these you'll hear directly from Oliver. This comprehensive suite of tools integrates, and we've been working closely with Microsoft over the last year and a half to integrate these deeply with the Hortonworks Data Platform with Hadoop so that you can go ahead and adopt this technology easily into your architecture. And it's really allowing companies to take advantage of these emerging data architectures. Now, the other thing that's unique here with Microsoft is in terms of infrastructure. You can certainly deploy Hadoop on Windows Server, and Hortonworks and Microsoft have worked to port Hadoop to Windows, and it's the only distribution available on Windows is the Hortonworks Data Platform. But you can also deploy it in the cloud. So on Windows Azure through HD Insight, which is the collaboration of Hortonworks with Microsoft putting Hadoop into the cloud. Again, you'll hear more from Oliver, but really you have this kind of hybrid. This is where the hybrid nature of the modern data architecture comes in, because whether you want to do it on-premise or in an appliance or in the cloud, Microsoft gives you that ability to take advantage of these new data types, analyze them and take advantage of new data with your existing tools, and then deploy it in the infrastructure that makes most sense. So it's an extremely flexible and comprehensive approach to the platform and to bringing this new technology out to the enterprise. Microsoft, of course, is a leader in terms of making things simplified and adoptable and consumable. And what I'd like to do is turn it over to Oliver to take you through some of the details and give us a nice little demo on that. So, Oliver, can I turn it over to you?
All right. Thanks, John. Really appreciate it. I will move to the next slide. Okay. So first of all, welcome everyone, and I know that there's a lot of you here that are regular attendees to the Hortonworks MDA series. We've also invited a lot of Microsoft customers to this, so this might very well be your first time seeing a presentation about Hadoop and Hortonworks. And so before I even go into deeply into my presentation, I wanted to level set why Microsoft and Hortonworks are partnered together and the nature of our partnership. So the first thing I want to say really clearly is that Microsoft views Hortonworks as our strategic partner for Hadoop. And there are many reasons around that. The main reason is because we see Hortonworks as the vendor who is most committed to Hadoop itself. And that's by contributing the most amount of code to Hadoop, having the most committers, and just having an overall company philosophy of contributing all innovations right back to Hadoop. And so we just view Hortonworks as the partner to partner with, and thus we built a very strong and unique relationship with Hortonworks. And it really goes down to three things here. One is engineering alignment, the second is corporate alignment, and the third is field alignment. And so around engineering alignment, and this is very unusual in the field, is we basically have created a virtual joint engineering team between Microsoft and Hortonworks. In fact, we co-develop with each other. We share resources. Our relationship with Hortonworks is not just a relicensing of the Hortonworks distribution. Our engineering teams have a joint milestone cadence, a joint roadmap. We do planning and execution meetings together, and we're also involved in various Hadoop sub-projects together, like Stinger and Tez. And I know I'm throwing out some jargon for those who don't know much about the Hadoop ecosystem, but at the very end of this webinar, we do have a link to the Microsoft Labs page, and this is on the Hortonworks website, where you can learn more about each of the individual distribution and the sub-projects that Microsoft and Hortonworks are working together with. And so you'll get a lot more detail on that at the very end of this webinar. Finally, we're also partnered at the corporate side. Microsoft is one of Hortonworks' strategic partners, and Hortonworks is one of Microsoft's strategic partners. We do joint marketing alignment. We jointly have customer support working together. And finally, we also have field alignment from our sales force as well. And so hopefully that gives you guys an understanding of the nature of the partnership between Microsoft and Hortonworks. Okay, so this next slide is quite busy, and so I'll apologize in advance for that. And what I would like you guys to do first is look at the left-hand side. And on the left-hand side, if you were just to look at the gray box that says Relational Data Warehouse, and the vertical, if you were to go down to the relational data sources, what I would argue is this is what a typical Microsoft customer's IT infrastructure would look like today, right? And so what it is perhaps you have many different transactional systems. You have OLTP or ERP or CRM or line of business applications, and you want to get analytics on top of that. And so what we've done in the past in the IT space for the last 20 to 30 years is we've created the centralized enterprise relational data warehouse to take advantage of optimizing all these different data sources into one single central version of the truth, and make it so that you can query that performantly. And so as a Microsoft customer, there's 3 options for you, and a lot of you guys would know this. It's SQL Server, which is a box software product. This is a self-deploy, self-install solution. We also have Parallel Data Warehouse, which is our high-end Tier 1 scale-out appliance. And finally, we have a cloud solution. This is relatively new, but you can also deploy SQL Server that's been optimized for data warehousing within Windows Azure, which is our cloud platform. And so this is essentially the traditional world where all the traditional data sources that you're kind of used to, that all would reside in these sources that you see here. And so what John mentioned was there is a lot of new data coming, and a lot of this data is coming from different sources, and these sources oftentimes don't have a rigorous structure to it. And so we label that as non-relational data, data that's coming from devices, from the web, from sensors, from social. Again, these are all the things that John mentioned. And so to resolve that, Microsoft has partnered deeply with Hortonworks so that we can co-contribute to the Hadoop ecosystem, right? And so what that has resulted in is the HTTP platform, the Hortonworks Data Platform. We have co-engineered and co-developed with Hortonworks on that. And what that also has resulted in is that Microsoft has taken all that work that was used to develop HTTP, and we have surfaced that within our appliance in Parallel Data Warehouse, as well as within the cloud, which is Windows Azure. And I'll talk a lot about each of these offers in subsequent slides, so I won't go into too much detail. But together, if we were to combine the relational data warehouse and the Hadoop ecosystem together, and we were to integrate that together, this is what Hortonworks has been calling the modern data architecture, and at Microsoft, we've been calling it the modern data warehouse. Essentially, it is the new end-to-end data platform. And to kind of give the end users ultimate value, we've also enabled all of our BI tools, which is available within Office. And given our end users the availability to actually get visualizations and interactive graphs and charts and some wonderful visualizations, and we made that available, and I'll be demoing that in the end of our presentation. So let's just keep moving forward and talking about each of these offers and details and how you can think about deploying this in a hybrid data architecture. Okay, so as we zoom in specifically in the Hadoop offers, specifically for Microsoft, what are we talking about here? It's really around 3 vehicles: software, which is self-deploy; appliance, which is all pre-built; and in the cloud. And as you can see at the bottom of this slide, we are leveraging the good work that Microsoft and Hortonworks are doing together to leverage the Hortonworks Data Platform as the underlying engine for our appliance in our cloud. And of course, for HTTP, it's already been released by Hortonworks, and so we're just partnering with Hortonworks and leveraging what they have released out into the market, namely HTTP for Windows. And so as we go into each of these components, what I'll talk about is what are the ideal customers, what are the typical use cases that you can think about, and of course, I'm not going to be able to cover everything, and so this is just what we've seen as best practices, and finally, some key information for you to think about. And so the first one is HTTP for Windows, and of course, those of you who have been regular attenders to the Hortonworks MDA webinar series, this is nothing new, but specifically for you guys who are Microsoft customers, what is HTTP for Windows? HTTP for Windows is Hortonworks distribution for Hadoop. Think about this as the ideal scenario is on-premise, and you want to self-deploy on your servers. And that's the kind of the ideal use case, and the ideal customer is for those who want to have an on-premise implementation of Hadoop on your own servers. we partner with Hortonworks to make that available, and you can actually get that. The download is right there at the bottom of the slide. But what are the scenarios that you can think about as you think about kind of this hybrid data platform or hybrid data architecture? What is the typical or maybe the best use case is the right word here? And we really see this as scenarios specifically for high sensitive data and or for you customers who have a large volume of data that's created on premise and you don't really want to move that anywhere else, like into the cloud, and you just want to keep all your data on premise. These are kind of the typical use cases. Of course, for HTTP for Windows, you can use it for any use case, but for a typical use case, this would be what we see as best practices. And of course, as you look at the use cases, it really centers around sensitivity of your data. And so for industries like financial services or telco or retail or healthcare or government, oftentimes your data is highly sensitive. And you don't want to keep you want to keep that data behind your corporate firewall. You don't want it out there. And so this would be generally a very good use case is to use HTTP for Windows for that. Okay, so let's go on to the next use case and the next vehicle, which is Hadoop in an appliance. And so first of all, just for actually for every customer, no matter if you're a Hortonworks MDA webinar attendee or you're a Microsoft customer, oftentimes the offer PDW is not well known. And so I'm just going to take a second, if you will, just to explain what this is, and we'll cover a little bit more in the next two slides. But we really, from Microsoft's perspective, see PDW as our mission-critical, Tier 1, high-end, high-scale offer. And it's really around two things. If you want to think about it, it's really around two things, which is it scales out your typical traditional relational data, and in the coming half of this year, in 2014, so coming really soon, and this is basically a pre-announcement, we are going to have Hadoop inside PDW. And so you will, for the very first time, from Microsoft's perspective, have a single offering, a single box that has both traditional relational data warehouse data inside the box, as well as your new non-relational, unstructured Hadoop data inside that same box. And so we have done a lot of engineering here at Microsoft to make that happen. And so although the use cases are very similar to the HTTP for Windows because it's all on-premise, and so as you can see here, the use cases are generally the same, I do want to talk about what the ideal customer scenario is, just so that you have an understanding about that. And this is really around a very different perspective, I would say, which is PDW gives you a pre-built solution so that you don't have to deploy yourself. There is no self-deploy here. You basically order this from one of our hardware partners, either HP or Dell, and you will be shipped a pre-built solution that already has both the relational data warehouse already pre-tuned and pre-optimized, as well as a Hadoop region that's pre-built and pre-optimized. And what that means is you don't have to do anything yourself. It's a hardware solution. And so what that means is on the hardware side, we have built in fault tolerance on the hardware perspective. Although there's fault tolerance obviously on the software side, we built it in the hardware side as well. We've also built in InfiniBand networking between so that the data movement within the appliance itself will be at the fastest performance. And so I'm going to talk about kind of the data movement between the relational and the non-relational in the subsequent slide. But keep that in mind. Keep that in mind that we can move data back and forth super quick. And essentially, the feature that we're going to be talking about in the next slide, and I'll just kind of introduce us to that here, is PolyBase, which allows you to join relational and non-relational data together. And so I'll talk about that more in the next slide. And so I just wanted to just reconfirm that the PDW version next will GA in the first half of this calendar year. Okay, so what is the underlying technology that's around PDW is this scale-out design, right? And so PDW uses massively parallel processing, or MPP technology, and that represents the most powerful distributed computing and scale. And what that basically means is as you need more scale, you don't have to get a brand new server. All you need to do is you add another rack, and it will automatically scale out. PDW uses a shared nothing architecture, which means that there's multiple nodes, and each of those nodes is running a separate instance of SQL Server with its own dedicated CPU, memory, and storage. As you submit a query into the system, it will be broken up, it will be parallelized, and it will scale out automatically over all those nodes. And that just means that it can scale out from terabytes to multi-petabytes of relational data. And what it also has on the non-relational side is this feature called PolyBase. And so this is a really interesting feature, and so I'll talk about it a little bit more. The first thing to note is this was designed in a Microsoft research organization. So Microsoft has a specific MSR, or Microsoft Research Division, that has all our PhDs and the foremost thought experts in the space. And so we designed PolyBase in Jim Gray Systems Labs. And this is founded by David DeWitt. And for those who have been around in the relational database world, you probably have heard of David DeWitt. He's one of the foremost researchers in this space. And so we hired him, and one of his first projects that he was working on was PolyBase. And so what is PolyBase? PolyBase, in essence, allows you, without manual intervention, you can issue a standard T-SQL query, and in that SQL query, you can reference both a relational table, like a table that's referencing a relational data store, or essentially a PDW table, and you can reference a table from within Hadoop on HDFS. And so then what you do, what the benefit here is that for customers who are trying to query both the relational data warehouse as well as your Hadoop system, you don't have to learn specifically MapReduce to do that. You can just issue a T-SQL query, and it will join automatically behind the scenes your relational data and your non-relational unstructured data in Hadoop, and it will return back the results to you. The other benefit to this is, as an IT person, you don't have to necessarily move your Hadoop data into a data warehouse prior to that analysis. It will do that all on the fly behind the scenes, and it will use InfiniBand networking, as I mentioned, and it will also use a parallelized data movement. And so it will do this at scale and performantly. And the users will have no idea this is going on. And so from a user's perspective, all they're seeing is they see the data in the relational data warehouse, and they see the data in Hadoop, and they want to join those two together. And so they join it together. And in the background, if you look at that gray box around use cases, PolyBase will do all these different functions in the background, and the end user has no idea. So they can, PolyBase can select Hadoop from the relational engine. It can import Hadoop into the relational engine. It could store Hadoop into a relational table. It could join Hadoop with the relational data. It can export relational data to Hadoop. It can enable push-down computation. Push-down basically means it converts the SQL query to a MapReduce, and that MapReduce runs on HDFS automatically and only returns back the end result. And it does this all seamlessly. The end user has no idea this is going on, and all they do is issue SQL and get back the results. It's a phenomenal technology, and it's integrated with Hortonworks, with HTTP. And so there are just a lot of great use cases that we've seen with customers. And so what I wanted to do is talk about some of these best practices, some of these use cases, so that you guys can have an understanding of how this is working in the real world. And so to do that, I wanted to talk about Direct Edge. So Direct Edge is one of the Microsoft customers. If I had to say or describe who Direct Edge is, it's the largest stock exchange that you've never heard about. So likely you probably never heard of Direct Edge, but in fact, Direct Edge, which is in New Jersey, they are the 4th largest equities exchange by notional value, right? So they are the 4th largest equities exchange in the world. They trade upwards of 10% of all market volume each and every day. And so they're definitely not a small player by any stretch of the imagination. And so what they had to do was they were essentially using a traditional data warehouse, and they were issuing some pretty complex queries. I'll give you an example. A complex query for them would be, let me find out what are the monthly fluctuations in trading fee revenue. And so that was an example complex query that they were issuing to the system. And in fact, what it did was they saw that query literally took 2 to 4 hours to generate a response. That's obviously unacceptable to them. And so what they did was they upgraded their system to a parallel data warehouse. And once they did that, they were able to get 163 times faster query performance just because they upgraded to PDW. And so that was a wonderful thing for them. And additionally, they started to, in their POC, they started to test PolyBase in a much more deeper way. And what they found was, wow, PolyBase is actually adding a lot of value to us. As a stock exchange, there is a concept called stock exchange messaging. And this is essentially for them is a non-relational unstructured data type. Again, it's stock exchange messaging. And so they wanted to be able to combine stock exchange messaging or their non-relational data with their structured trading data, and they had no way of doing that. And within their POC, they were able to look at PolyBase and connect that up with Hadoop, and they saw that this had a lot of value, and they're definitely excited and looking forward to using this feature within their system. Okay, so that's basically PDW in a nutshell. So we will move on specifically to the cloud and the hybrid portions of this presentation. And so it really centers around Windows Azure HC Insight. Okay, so first of all, what does this offer from Microsoft? Essentially, we took all that great work from Hortonworks, and again, this is Microsoft and Hortonworks working together, and we architected HCP essentially for Azure, which is the Microsoft Cloud. And what this is there's a ton of benefits for the cloud, and so I just want to give you guys an understanding of what that is. So the first thing is, when you put something into the cloud, you are now leveraging the full-on elasticity of that cloud. You have scale at your fingertips. Anytime that you want more scale, you just have to enable it, right? You don't have to purchase another, go through a procurement process to purchase another hardware rack. Essentially, all you have to do is, well, I want more compute or I want more storage. You click on the interface, and voila, you have more storage or you have more compute. And so this is literally scale on demand, scale at your fingertips. And because it's in the cloud, there's obviously no hardware, right? There's no hardware for you to procure, no hardware for you to acquire. And essentially what that means is the minute that you want to enable Hadoop, you can be up and running seriously within 10 minutes. If you were to leave this webinar and go to one of our call to actions, which is the Windows Azure website, you could be up and running on HC Insight within 10 minutes. Okay, so that's literally what you can do. You don't have to install anything. You just have to enable it. And so one of the key benefits, and I'll just mention this because this is more of an architectural standpoint, is that from an architectural standpoint, we actually separated the storage of the data with the computational power of the cloud. We separated those two things, and what that means is that you can keep your data, as much data as you want, in the Azure storage for very cheap. We don't charge a lot for storage itself. In fact, it's very, very cost effective. And the minute that you want to do a lot of Hadoop or a lot of computation on that data, you can spin up as much Hadoop as you possibly want or need for whatever project that you're doing. So let's say that you're doing something of really high computational, you need a lot of Hadoop on working on that data. You can spin up as much as you want and spin it down when you're done. And so that's just a very interesting scenario. You could even, and this is an interesting scenario as well, you could have multiple Hadoop clusters working on the same data set. And that's because we've architected HCP basically in the cloud. And so if we start to think about the use cases for cloud and Hadoop, there's just a ton of stuff. And a lot of our customers are starting to experience that. But one thing I will mention is because you could bring a lot of computation to bear at will whenever you want and spin it down so that you're not using any Hadoop at given points in time, a lot of our customers are taking advantage of that. And as an example, a lot of our customers, either in universities or healthcare, they're being able to analyze massive genome data in their research, right? They're looking at genome data at scale with HT Insight. And so they're spinning up the HT Insight Hadoop clusters, and they're running a lot of computation, and then they spin it down. We don't need it anymore. And so the data is just sitting there in Azure, but the Hadoop cluster is spun down. They're not paying for that anymore, right? And so it's just sitting there. And the minute that they need it, they spin it back up again. And so that's kind of one of the use cases and one of the ideal scenarios if you want to take advantage of the cloud. And so I'll go through a few customer examples of this just so that you can get a good feel around that. And the first one is a really fun example. I don't know how many of you guys are gamers out there. I definitely used to be a big gamer, but this example is around 343 Systems. So 343 Systems is the organization that created Halo. And so, again, a wonderful, fun example. And so if any of you guys play online games, you know that in a first-person shooter type game, it's really around designing good maps. Right? You want to have a good map so that you can have a good kind of experience within the game. You also don't want to run into cheaters, right? That's a big deal when you're playing online. Is that you're not getting, you're not playing against someone who has some sort of cheating mechanism that can kill you, or like an aiming bot or something like that. And so 343 Systems wanted to optimize the in-game experience that the customers, or basically all the gamers, when they're going online and they're playing online, they want to optimize that experience. And so what they did was they're doing in-game analytics. They're literally pumping all the data that's being generated in-game into Windows Azure HT Insight, and they're tracking everything that happens in that game. And so the benefits are actually many. They are able to create custom campaigns aimed at retaining players, right? They could do that. They can enhance the user experience based on what they see in the in-game analytics. They can enhance the user experience so that the users, when they're using the Halo, it will be optimized for them. They could also detect cheaters, and they have. They've been able to detect cheaters and ban them from using Halo. And so just a really wonderful and fun example of how you can use Hadoop. And so moving beyond that to a more business-critical example is a company called Scribe. And so you've probably never heard of them, so I'll just kind of explain what they've been commissioned to do. And so they've been commissioned by the United Kingdom government to help identify health epidemics, so breakouts of viruses or things like that. So what they need to do is figure out when that's happening and notify the government ASAP. And so what they did was they went through and looked at all the things that happen when a customer checks in to a hospital. And one of the things that happened was some of the doctors and some of the people who checked the clients or the patients in started to take handwritten notes, right? And so you can see an example of that handwritten note. And so what they did is, well, we need to do some sort of analysis on this handwritten note. So what they did was they pushed all these kind of scans of the handwritten notes into the cloud so that they can do natural language processing using HT Insight. And once they did that using kind of the power of the cloud, they were able to bring that analysis back on-premise. And so this is a perfect example of a hybrid scenario. They brought it back on-premise, and they joined the patient data with their on-premise records, the patient records. And what they were able to do was figure out what are the symptoms, what are the kind of the symptoms that are consistent with a particular outbreak. So as an example, if there was a meningitis outbreak, the symptoms would be like I had a stiff neck or I had the chills. You have kind of these common symptoms, and they will be able to track that with the system. And furthermore, they're going one step further. They're even bringing in external data that's coming from social media. So as an example, if someone was tweeting or someone was on Facebook commenting on the fact that they feel sick, maybe they have these symptoms of a stiff neck or they're feeling the chills, they're able to aggregate that information into their system so that they can really detect if there really was some sort of outbreak that was happening. Okay, so I wanted to talk about, essentially this is a summary of what all I talked about in terms of having the Hadoop offers in a software, having the Hadoop offer in the appliance, and finally in the cloud. One last thing I want to mention was Microsoft's BI tools. And so we're all about making everything accessible to as many end users as we possibly can. So similar to our BI strategy, which is to make BI accessible to as many users as we possibly can, we're also trying to make Hadoop accessible to as many users as we possibly can. So, but before I did kind of explain that, I wanted to explain the BI components because we're about to go into a demo about this. And so for us to make BI accessible to as many users as we possibly can, that means making BI available in the tools that end users already know, they already use, and they're already familiar with. And so what that means is Microsoft Office, namely Microsoft Excel. And so you'll see in our demo what we're doing. We're really clamping down on making Excel the BI tool that everyone in your organization can use, because everyone already uses Excel and they already know how to use it. And so we're trying to make that available to everyone. And so in the future, we're already starting to deploy this strategy, is we're making Office itself available in the cloud. And so Microsoft has an offer. It's called Office 365. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but it's our new productivity suite. We basically took Microsoft Office and we're making it available all within a web browser in the cloud. And so what we wanted to do with our BI tools was also make BI available within Office 365. And so the new offer that we have out there today, it's called Power BI for Office 365. We'll have a link for you at the end of the webinar for you to go try. It's a free public preview right now, and so you could try that for free at your will. And this essentially allows you to have BI capabilities within the cloud. And so I'll demo that in a second, but before I do that, I just want to reinforce what John has been saying kind of in the beginning of this webinar, which is that we want to make Hadoop deeply integrated, as well as we want to make Hadoop be able for you to leverage your existing skills. And that's a very important point for Microsoft, is that we want to make Hadoop available and integrated and in the skills that you already know and love. And so from a Microsoft perspective, that looks like a variety of different things. So as you're looking at this diagram, I know it's a little busy. I just want you guys to focus on the top kind of center of the diagram, which is management and monitoring. And so from a Microsoft perspective, we have a tool called System Center. And for you guys who are Microsoft customers, you probably already know this very well. And so what we're doing with System Center is we are deeply integrating that with Ambari, which is the Hadoop management console, so that you can use System Center to manage a Hadoop system like Hortonworks. So that's number one. And as we move to kind of the top right, we're also making Hadoop available and integrated with Visual Studio.net, right? And so this is making it so that you can leverage your existing development skills. And on the far right, we're also integrating our BI tools with Hadoop using OWC and our Hive connectors. And so these allow you to be able to visualize Hadoop data within familiar tools, and I'll demo that in the next slide or the next portion of our presentation. And finally, the last point is that we wanted to make it easy for you to move data between Hadoop to your relational data warehouse and back again. And the way we do that is through both our Scoop connectors as well as through PolyBase. Remember, I talked about PolyBase initially in this presentation. We do it through both those technologies. And so the end net summary is that for you guys who are Microsoft customers who might not be familiar with Hadoop, don't worry. We got you covered. We want to make Hadoop as accessible as we possibly can for you. And to kind of bring that to life, I will show you guys within a demo. So just bear with me as I share my desktop. And it should be coming up in a second. And what you should be seeing right now is Excel. And what I wanted to do was set up this Excel demo. The first thing is, as you see here, this is Excel. And in fact, what we're doing here is we're demoing an actual environment. It's a demo of their environment of the city of Barcelona. So, of course, everyone here knows the city of Barcelona is in Spain. right? They are a progressive city. So I don't know if any of you guys have been to Barcelona. I actually have not, but I've seen a case study. It's a crazy awesome case study where Barcelona is such a progressive city that they have these stations where they rent bicycles to you. So they're trying to be a more green city, right? So what you can do is you can walk up to one of these stations and you can rent a bike and you can ride that bicycle to another station, drop off that bicycle, and then just walk off, right? And so it's a really progressive city, and they have all these stations, these bicycle renting stations throughout the city of Barcelona. And what they allow you to do is they allow you to tweet your feedback around individual stations and your experience with that station within their environment. So what I'll do now is I'll show you kind of what they've done. And so first of all, we're looking at Excel here. And within Excel, we have this new add-in. It's called Power Query. And the way you get this Power Query add-in is actually in the call to action at the very end of this webinar. It's called www.powerbi.com. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to showcase the fact that Excel now allows you to connect to almost any type of data source, whether it be your traditional data warehouse, whatever vendor that you might have, whether it be SQL Server, it could come from Oracle or DB2 or even Teradata. It could come from any one of these kind of standard relational data warehouse that we all know and love, right? But what about these other new sources that we've all been talking about? Well, look at from the other data sources, you can actually now connect to HDFS. So HTTP for Windows, you can now connect to that through Excel. You can also connect to Windows Azure HD Insight. So what I'll do is I'll connect to an HD Insight server. Let me just spell this right, HD Insight server, and then connect to that. And what I now have available is all my data within HD Insight server. Of course, we've populated this data with some demo data that's come from the city of Barcelona. And what I can do now is I can drill down into all their tweets. So what they did was they loaded up all their tweets into HD Insight in Azure. This is in the cloud. This is the hybrid world in action. We're watching that here. So I'm using Excel. Now I'm connected to HD Insight server. And now I'm looking at all my tweets, right? And so what I can do now is with all my tweets, I can do everything that I could do in Excel, I can do with all that data. So I've already kind of prepared this for you guys. This is a chart within Excel. And what I've done here is I've just basically dragged and dropped these fields from all those tweets. And it's just as easy as if you were to create a pivot table. It's that easy, right? So you just check mark, check mark, check mark. And now you have a diagram. It's actually interactive, so you can click on these things, and it'll show you interactivity. And so that's great. And just for kind of the time factor, I'm just going to go forward to show you one of our new features that we're really excited about. Is within Power BI, and it makes Hadoop even more accessible. And this is called questions and answers, and it's essentially natural language search. So you can make Hadoop even more accessible than what I've been showing you within Excel. You can ask any question of the system after you uploaded that Excel file to Power BI. You can now ask, well, give me all my available bytes, right? And automatically, the Power BI tool will go into and answer your question with a visualization. They chose a bar chart automatically to show you all the available bytes by the station, right? You have all these stations, bicycle stations, and this is using the station ID. So you might like, well, okay, that's pretty cool. What else can I do? Can I look at it by street? Can I look at my available bikes by street? Yes, you can, right? This is all natural language search. You're just typing it as you want to, and now you're looking at, wow, these are all my bikes that is available by station. What if I want to see that as a map? I just type as map, and automatically it shows you all the stations within Barcelona and all the kind of availability visualized as these circle diagrams. What if I wanted to look at address? So I'm going to take away map. I'm just going to look at it by address or by station ID. I can look at it by, let me just type in address here. Okay, cool. What I can do now is I can look at the capacity. So show me the bikes. Show me the stations or the bike stations that has more than 30 bikes there. So more than 30 bikes, by address, I only have 3 stations. So this is good. What if I want to see if I have map? I'm going to look at a map. So now I'm looking at 3 of the stations, and I can say, well, I'm kind of located. I'm closer to these stations than that station. I want to go to this station. So let's look at it let's look at this station specifically. Let's look at the tweets on this station. So I'm going to type in tweets for Ramon Churro, and it actually auto-completes for me. And I'm going to click on enter. And now I'm looking at just the tweets for that specific station. I can even look at it by sentiment, and it will show me all the tweets by sentiment for that station. And so this is just a really short example of how we can make Hadoop more accessible to your end users, which is basically our goal. And I'm just running short in time, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this demo, and I'll just kind of finish and conclude by just saying that Microsoft, in conjunction with our partnership with Hortonworks, we want to make big data available and accessible and integrated to a billion users, and that's our vision and that's our goal. And with that, I'll hand this call back to John to conclude our call.
Great, thank you, Oliver. I know you had to kind of rush through the demo. There was a lot of questions. In fact, we've had, I'll call it an overwhelming number of questions probably from a standpoint of being able to get back to them. So just a couple, and we are right at the top of the hour, just a couple of quick places where we want to point you to get some additional information. So firstly, you can learn more about how Microsoft and Hortonworks are working together in open source to bring Hadoop to Windows and enhance Hadoop overall and make it adoptable for the enterprise in our labs page on the hortonworks.com. There's a great tutorial for Hortonworks Sandbox that has been written by Microsoft to show you how to use Microsoft tools against Hadoop. So you can try it yourself, get your hands on it right there in our Sandbox. You can see the URL there under Hadoop tutorial for Microsoft. Then you can also get started with a free trial of HD Insight. So try Hadoop in the cloud if you'd like, and you can also, as Oliver mentioned, get started with Power BI. So lots of different ways that you can get going. Again, we've had probably an overwhelming number of questions for us really to be able to get back. So I'll ask everybody's patience while we, what we'll do is we'll try to get to those offline and get back. Oliver, there's one kind of, I'll call it low-hanging fruit question just out of the demo that just came through. Just how many nodes of Hadoop were you running behind there? And is Power Query available in Office Excel 10 or 2012? Maybe you can just answer those 2 quick questions, and then the rest we'll probably have to take offline.
Okay, thanks, John. As it relates to Power Query, you can get that. If you're looking at your screen today, go to www.powerbi.com, and there is an add-in for you to download under the Getting Started. So you can get that today as an add-in without any licensing fee, specifically for the on-premise Excel Power Query add-in. You can get that available today. Now, as it relates to the demo that we showed, essentially that was demo data. So the customer itself, they're running a much larger Hadoop cluster. The one I was running was a few nodes, but that was just because it was demo. I wasn't actually going to the city of Barcelona's Hadoop cluster. That wouldn't be appropriate. So for the purpose of this demo, it's just a few nodes, but the city of Barcelona obviously is running a much larger implementation of Hadoop.
Great, thank you, Oliver. And I think now we're a couple minutes after the hour, so with that, I will thank you very much, Oliver, for joining. I'll thank all of our attendees, and I'll thank Kim for helping with making this webinar access. Again, there's lots of resources. You'll get a link to the recording and a link to the slides after the webinar. We appreciate everybody's attendance, and thank you. This concludes our presentation.
Hey, can you guys hear us?
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah, we're in practice session.
Okay, we're back in practice mode.
Cool.
That was great. At one point, we had a little bit over 500 people came in and listened, so that's great. And we had about, I think we had like 80 questions that we didn't have a chance to, about 86 questions that we haven't had a chance to go through. So.
Only 86, huh? Hello?
We'll call you back.